Noah. Burp, burp.
Max, do you even know you're live at the minute, mate?
That'd be crazy.
That would be insane.
I know, right?
All right.
Woo! Let's go. Welcome in to another episode of the PHNX Rising podcast. Appreciate everyone joining us here on a Thursday evening. Got the crew here. I am Max Simpson. I'm joined by Mr. Rees, stat like a Goodall. Hello, sir.
Hello, Max Simpson. Where's your kit?
Yeah,
He didn't do anything for Kit Thursday.
We all decided to wear Kit Thursdays. Before we decided this, Spurs were playing. I thought it was dressing for a funeral, and it turns out they actually.
It's not all black.
It's close enough. I also thought we were going to be in studio.
You wear
K.
shorts to
I
a
also
funeral.
thought we were going to be in
You'd wear
Studio K,
shorts
presented
to a
by Circle
funeral,
K,
Max.
and they wouldn't have seen the bottom half. But here we are. That is okay.
Hashtag washed.
No, we're still alive and well in the Europa League. Let's go.
But he is
And-
watching Emmerdale.
Wait, what is that you hear?
He's a big fan of Emmerdale.
What is that you hear? Is that the
Mr.
return of Mr.
Vacations.
Vacations? He's back.
Yeah.
First name Mr. Last name Vacations. How
I
are we
was there
doing?
on Saturday, mate. Where were you?
Huh? Yeah, I was actually on holiday, so thank you.
Vacation.
No holiday.
It's a holiday.
Very
You know,
different.
we want to get
See,
into
in certain parts
really
of
want-
English, it's the same thing, but yes.
Sorry,
okay,
sorry.
fair enough.
Let me
fair
rephrase.
enough.
I was celebrating my religious
No.
holiday of Passover. Would we like to touch that? Okay, good man. And he's beaming red.
Are
We
you going to
love
be
that.
at the next game then, mate?
Oh, don't do that. It's a week-long holiday. Sorry. Anyway.
We turn it around quite
Oh,
easily.
don't
Max.
we all? We got
As
the
always.
entire crew here. Berg City in the chat. Let's go, Suns. Rebuild. And Matar in the chat. You guys are funny. Appreciate it. And we're only about 2 minutes in, so just wait for the rest of the pod. But this is usually how it goes. Hit the like on your way in here. We got no more Kyle. Again, we're sad. We are. I don't want to say are we graced by Noah? Are we saddled with Noah? Are we left with
We'll
Noah?
just have to
Time
wait
will
and
tell.
see. We'll
Time
have
will
to wait
tell.
and see.
Noah, how are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling good. That's
I miss Kyle.
good for goal.
Freaking
He's got
love
a
it.
Detroit hat on, and we're going to be talking about Rising losing to Detroit City.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
I mean,
we're already on a
Kyle would never.
Kyle would never.
Kyle would never. Well, we are off to a fantastic
Kyle would
start.
just be eating like cold soup out of a
He
can
would.
right now
he
during
would
the show.
he would cold soup.
And like chunky cold
and when we
soup
say
as
cold
well.
soup,
You know?
we're not talking about like even pouring in a bowl. We're talking just straight
No.
out the can.
Straight
But he
out
would
the can.
enjoy it.
He
And
would.
At the end of the day, that's all that matters.
He
He would
would.
enjoy
In all
it.
fairness, I also
You,
partook in
to be
that.
fair, Noah would be a pretty like for like replacement of enjoying
Yeah.
cold soup at the can. Yeah,
It's terrible.
that's just the type of vibe we curate here on the PHNX Rising podcast. We have a lot.
Slightly concerning, but it's,
But
fine.
it checks out. We have a lot to get into, right? I'm going a little bit unchronological. We'll talk about last night's Open Cup dramatic victory. Bless the U.S. Open Cup. Let's go. We're going to then send it back to last weekend, a pretty crazy loss for Phoenix Rising. Then we'll preview this weekend's matchup. But listen, Rees, we've been saying it for the last couple of weeks, and it seems to track since the season has started. Can this club ever have just a normal, standard 90-minute match? Ever?
No, especially when it turns into 120 minutes.
Facts.
That was one of the games of all time.
Gosh.
It was probably the worst case scenario for Rising to play 120 minutes and then go down to 10 men. So you have to play, what was it, a half hour plus? Because it was
It's about 50 minutes they played
Yeah,
with 10 men.
No,
Yeah.
that's just not optimal for a midweek game, especially when you're in the spot you are in the league at the moment. But hey, Rising won at the end of the or drew and then won the penalty shootout.
There we go.
There
Thank
it
you,
is.
Reese. Thank you, Reese.
My apologies.
It's a draw.
It's
Penalties
a draw.
take place after the game has ended. A draw. There
Facts.
you go. Thank you.
They won our hearts. They very much had a pretty
Drew the game.
Yeah, no. Won our hearts through the game. No, I mean, right. Listen, it was a rising performance where, right, they've played this Tulsa team before to open the season, different scenarios with both of them. A month plus is gone. The teams are definitely saying differing runs of form and different performances for sure. I think, again, we have seen this Rising team from match to match you just don't know what you're going to get. And this was the pinnacle of it, right? You're able to get a pretty decent, well-worked goal. You go down a man, end up scoring, and you end it all with you're faced right before this match would go into penalties. You're faced with Patrick Rakovsky having to save a penalty kick, and he did it. And he stood on his head through that shootout, and Rising, they advance.
Yeah. No, it was one of those games where, you just think about, realistically, could it have gone wrong at so many times? Yeah, it really could have. You think about the header that goes over the bar from 4 yards out. You think about the shot that comes off of the post. You think about the penalty that, is it a good save? Yes, every penalty save is a good save. Mm-hmm. But when you're a penalty taker, you almost have to give the keeper something to save for that to even be the case. A really well taken penalty is not going to even be savable. And so, all of those things there from Tulsa, it was margins that went against them in a game where Rising did sit back, did accept a lot of the pressure there, sat in a block, and yet at the same time, it felt that there was a lot of space even in that block for Tulsa to operate in until it got into the penalty area, and then it was just a mess of bodies everywhere, and you were kind of hoping that one of your bodies is getting on the end of the cross and not another, and not the opposition's.
How many times have we seen that? Have we said that this season of Rising, whether they're in a low block or even just within the midfield, it's just open.
Yeah.
It is just, that has been the only consistent thing I feel throughout this season is, yes, the attack can be humming. Yes, you can expect some relatively dazzling goals, from time to time from this club, but that is the consistent thing. Can be very leaky within that midfield. And even, we saw it even a little bit in the defense too.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what we saw in the Detroit game too, which we'll get into later. But I really think that Rising were able to get out of this game, with the draw and penalty shootout win because Taylor Calhera and Tulsa as a whole, they were just not clinical whatsoever. I mean, you just look at the numbers, 2.93 expected goals. And then I think Calhera accounted for a little over half of that. And he didn't get on the score sheet. Yes, the penalty's in there, but they as a team, Tulsa, they're already at the bottom of the goal conversion or shot conversion rate for USL Championship. They've really, really struggled. See the Biden numbers, 23 shots, 6 on goal. That struggling to get shots on goal and then struggling to put shots in the back of the net was really what led to Tulsa's downfall.
Yeah, I mean, right, Tulsa, they're darn near doubling up that XG. Rising, aka Possession FC, they're losing that battle. Shots are similar, on goal relatively similar, but it just comes. Listen, especially in knockout football, as we know, it comes down to margins, it comes down to moments, and Owen, dare I say it, goals change games.
Yeah, they do. And the thing is, right, from Rising's perspective, I think they went in at the break and felt as though maybe, they had a little bit of an edge maybe to the XG at that point. And yet they hadn't really threatened. Tulsa hadn't really threatened at that point either. For Rising to come out as quickly as they did in the second half to get that goal and put Tulsa kind of, having to chase the game, that was really critical for Rising to do it at that point. Now, obviously, yes, you go down a man, and that just completely changes the complexion. Not only because at that point you've already taken off Hope Aveyevu, bringing on a more defensive option in there. You lose Isan Sako right around that time due to pretty, just one of those balls that just gets smacked right in your head, and you kind of go, okay, you take him off and you bring a defensive option on. And then you lose Rémi Cabral to the red card, and all of those things add up, and now you've got one forward on the pitch. You're going to sit back, you're going to be in that low block. I mean, I said it at the time where it was like, you kind of felt like at that point when they made that sub, or right after the, you've made some of the subs, you've got Rising, down a man, parking the bus had to work.
Yeah.
That parking the bus approach we were taking late on, you felt had to work, because one thing that Rising wasn't going to do once they gave up a goal, if they gave up a goal, and they did, of course, give up a goal, was they weren't going to realistically go out and find another one themselves at that point. Penalties was probably the best case scenario for them. Now, maybe they take a slightly different approach in extra time, and maybe they could find one. Maybe instead of taking Jearl Margaritha off for Darius Johnson, maybe you leave both of those out there. You bring Johnson on for somebody else. You've got two options then in the attack. That will leave you a little bit more exposed at the back, though, there. But it would have also opened up times whereby we saw those counter-attacks that Rising were going on. Maybe if you give another outlet, you give another option there, maybe they can actually get something going. As it was, it felt like it was just completely, swimming upstream. You've got no options to help you there. You would often have the one forward with 2 or 3 defenders back there, and they get forced out wide, and then it would be, okay, can they play the ball in? No, of course they can't, because there's nobody there.
Sure.
There's nobody up with them in the attack. But I mean, look, penalties felt like it was probably in those circumstances the best that Rising could have hoped for, and by a little bit of luck, I think at times in extra time, and a lot of grit and fight, they held on, and they did ultimately manage to force it to that point.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you even saw the quote read in midweek, and I don't want to try not to misquote, but paraphrasing what Pa-Maduo Kah along the lines of, right, how are you choosing, which competition are you prioritizing? How do you choose those rosters? I mean, you're asking me to essentially choose between my 2 daughters, right? Like it's something where they brought up.
I will say there that after hearing that on Monday, that exact phrase used, when I saw the lineup, I was a little bit relieved that there was not going to be any explanation of which is the unfavorable daughter then at that point, because it was the kind of answer that opened it up to that. But he stayed true to that. He did stay true to that, and pretty first choice 11.
He very much, and that's exactly it, right? I mean, we have people in it depends on the fan, right? But Rising had definitely varying degrees of approach for Open Cup, but hey, they got through the first one. They will go on to play Houston Dynamo, a familiar face on that staff with former Phoenix Rising head coach Owain on there. But right, I mean, if you're even looking at this performance in this totality, again, it's trying to find the through lines, trying to, as we'll go back later into last weekend's match, you're just trying to find the consistency out of it, right? Even quoting Patrick Rakovsky after he had quite a match, saving those PKs and everything. From him, he even gave his thoughts, right? It's not like we played bad.
That was for Detroit.
Apologies on that. Oh, it is on the Detroit.
He's not even reading the quotes properly. Well done, Max.
Well,
good job.
We're jumping ahead of there. We're jumping ahead.
We'll take Pa-Maduo
Simpson.
Kah's quote in this one and what he said about the goalkeepers, because obviously Patrick Rakovsky stood on his head in that one. One thing that Pa said after that game there in Tulsa was, we know together with Tristan Henry and Patrick, they are 2 of the best keepers we have in this league. Again, it showed the capability that Patrick has, and we hope he can kick on together with Tristan to keep leading and guiding this team. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Right? Because I think when you come off of that game, the obvious answer for most people, you'd say, well, you want to keep riding the hot hand, right? Patrick had such a good game in terms of those saves later on. And frankly, some of his saves earlier in the game as well. When you add all of it up, he had probably one of his best performances, I think, in a Phoenix Rising shirt. And he wasn't the only player. I think JP Skiers also one of those players. Just you look at the amount of ground that he covered in that game, and where he'd just be winning free kicks everywhere, right? There's a few guys that I think had some of their best games in a Phoenix Rising shirt, even if it wasn't pretty. It wasn't necessarily the guys who are playing pretty football, but the guys who are playing gritty and effective football, they were the ones who played well. And I think that Patrick Rakovsky is one of those. Now, Tristan Henry, this is the awkward one, right? Because Henry's numbers are slightly better in USL so far, in USL play. Yeah. But neither of them have really shone, right? As Pa says about 2 of the best keepers in the league, that isn't really what we've seen so far from these 2 this season. Not taking into account anything else, not taking into account their ability, maybe bigger picture here, but just if we're going to talk in the limited sample of this season so far, we haven't seen that from either of these guys. So when you're in that position, you kind of have to, I think, go at that point with just who's on form right now. And to me, that's Patrick Rakovsky.
And see, that's a very interesting one, right? Because when we were talking earlier in the season, right, it's very much, right, how long of a leash do you give Patrick Rakovsky? Do you want to see Tristan Henry in there? And when they ended up rolling with Tristan Henry, was it the absolute stand on your head, immaculate performance, left no doubt? No, but we did see, right, in terms of at least some sort of consistency, even in, even some of handling on the ball and everything, it at least wasn't a letdown. So that's where you're trying to find the balance of, right? I mean, Owen asked in the chat, first off, he's calling you out for wearing shorts. Where is oh, no, not me.
You're also wearing shorts.
No, Rob's other question, right? Does Rakovsky start against Houston, first home game against MLS in a while? And I think that is the interesting one, right? I mean, are you alternating these guys? Are you playing the hot hand from match to match? Are you saying, hey, Tristan Henry, we're going to give you the league matches once again, but then play Rakovsky in Open Cup? It's a very wide open dynamic, and it's really hard to tell at this point.
Yeah, I just feel as though when you look at it, right, I don't think, and this is the thing, when you look at Houston, that's a few weeks away. I don't think you're looking that far ahead with the goalkeepers. I think you're looking week to week. I think you're in a position whereby you're making that decision every single week.
Yeah.
And going into each individual game as you go along, you're kind of evaluating, okay, who's training well? How well did they do last week?
Yeah.
How well did they do in their last game? When you add all these things up, do you maybe need to look at a change? Does someone's confidence need that they, kind of need to swap around a little bit there? Who's on form? And it's why I'm quite hesitant to say, I think, who you'd look at to start against Houston right now, because that's quite a few weeks away still. It's about 3 weeks away. And a lot can happen over that period of time. Maybe you do start Tristan Henry this weekend. Look, personally, if it was up to me, I'm starting Patrick Rakovsky this weekend. But if you do start Tristan Henry this weekend and he plays a blinder, well, you're not dropping him. And then when you get further down the line, right, and you get to Houston, then I think you have to start whoever's playing well at that time. I don't think you can go down the we have a cup goalkeeper approach, right?
No.
We saw Patrick Rakovsky in goal against Seattle last year, and it felt like it completely changed Rising's dynamic, right? He wasn't really the kind of guy who was going to play it out the back at that time. Not Rocco Rios Novo style, of course. And that was such a big part of Rising's play last year still. The ability to have Rocco Rios Novo playing that sweeper keeper, and Patrick didn't look comfortable in the same way with the ball at his feet, right? So when you just try and go in with that, this is our cup goalkeeper approach, I don't think that works always. Not when these goalkeepers are... I mean, we'll have to see, really. But by the time this comes around, I think you just got to go with whoever's playing best at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, is how long can you go, though, just rotating them, before it becomes a genuine point of concern? I'm not saying it is right now, but I mean, if you're, a few weeks from now, at that Houston game, which is a couple of weeks away, and you have rotated the keepers, like, is it a point of concern that you don't have a nailed on number one? In my eyes, it kind of would be, but I'd be interested to see, Max, what do you think?
I tend to agree. I mean, listen, it's one thing to ride the hot hand and the results speak for themselves and you want to go with who gives you the best chance. But at some point, even if it is, people say, oh, it's the goalkeeper, it's interchangeable. Well, I disagree in terms of especially how this team is looking to play, how you need to forge those relationships and those connections, those passing angles with the back line, which even to their credit has been reshuffled here and there. It should hopefully be a little bit more stable with guys coming back in and everything. But you need to nail down, a starter, right? And hopefully, right, it's been a lot of back and forth. Hopefully that materializes within the coming weeks, but I don't know. It is a tough one to see. I agree you ride the hot hand. I also agree with Owen that I don't think this can be a secondary cup, quote unquote, secondary cup keeper approach, because you're in the USL Championship. You are not an MLS team who maybe can afford that, where you get into the later rounds and whatnot. It's just not the same thing. So we'll have to see.
I do think as well, and this is just to kind of touch on this with the cup before we move on to more on the league. I mean, we should point out as well, by the way, that with the draw today, Rising know that if they do beat Houston Dynamo, they will host the following game against either Austin FC or El Paso Locomotive. I think the other thing to note here is that while this Rising team could turn things around a bit in the league, if there's a real chance here that Rising don't turn those things around very quickly, right? And there are good reasons to believe that, right? They're going to lose Jearl Margaritha for probably about a month if he goes on international duty for the Gold Cup. You could lose others as well, Carl's saying. You could deal with injuries more down the line. All of these things can add up and cause you problems during the course of a year. And a cup run is often a good distraction from that, right? When teams aren't having great years, if you have a bit of a cup run, you go and you win a couple of games, that can really turn around kind of your perspective on a season. And I don't think that, look, we're about a week or so away from the Jägermeister Cup kicking off. I don't think that's going to be the kind of competition that will really galvanize the fans and get them going. It's got a very strong kind of like Carabao Cup, but almost worse energy.
Yeah.
It's a bit more like I forget what it's called now. Is it the Virtue Trophy now?
Yes, yeah.
It's got that feel to it.
The Bristol Street Motors.
It used to be Bristol Street Motors. They've rebranded. There's been many different things. Johnson's Paint Trophy, Papa John's Trophy, Checker Trade Trophy. I was there when it was the Checker Trade Trophy.
Nice.
LDV Vans. Trying to think of more. Autoglass, I think, at one point sponsored it. There were lots of names. That it's kind of like the Carabao Cup went by many other names before that.
Sure.
But you know, when you look at it, I just don't think it's that exciting for a lot of people, right? You've got some of the League One teams in there, yes, but a lot of it's just going to be like, oh, great, you're playing USL Championship teams again. Oh, great, you're playing more USL Championship teams in a weird format that doesn't really make sense. And I'm sure if you get to the semis, it changes, and you think, okay, this is exciting now, and I want to see this through to a conclusion. I want to lift a cup. And if it's like last year, it's not even a cup. It's one of those like dinner plate looking things.
Sure.
But the Open Cup does have the potential to be that, right? You go on a run, you beat one or two MLS teams, and you just feel really good about yourselves as a result of that. You know, you kind of make a name for yourself. This game that Rising's playing now is going to be live on TV, okay, going out nationally. So, you know, this isn't streaming now. They're live on CBS Sports Network, right, against Houston Dynamo. And it's not as though they don't play those kind of games anyway, because they do in the league. But again, it's kind of that national stage against the top division opponents that I think you will come away with. You know, those are the things that make highlights in a season, even if, say, you know, we're not looking at a team that's going to be top 4 necessarily in the league, but they'll kind of be maybe in that mid-table range. That's the kind of thing that really helps you boost.
Absolutely. A couple of comments from the chat. Videos Bluebird saying Pat has to start, talking to the goalkeepers, and Albert doubling down, saying going game to game unless one just looks otherworldly over a decent stretch. Yeah, we will have to see. Well, on the other side of the break, we'll be talking about a little recap from Phoenix Rising. Heartbreaking defeat over the past weekend. Don't go anywhere. All right, this is gonna be kind of an interesting one, right? Because typically we talk about our friends at Circle K. You know, a couple things, right? Number one, we're usually doing the snack toss, and I think the chat voted right. The chat does not want to see the snack toss come back. I mean, Kyle and I had a pretty good connection, Rees.
Yeah,
am I right?
Yeah,
usually hit it either on the first one or the second one,
or sometimes the third.
Sometimes the third. I mean, you know, this pass wasn't always the best, but hey, you know what is always the best? Circle K. Go through Circle K. They got everything you need, right? Again, become an Inner Circle member. Download the Circle K app. Opt into the Inner Circle program. All you need is a phone number to do so. You can save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. Save 3 cents per gallon right after that, and then even get to the max level. Get 5
premium member.
What's called?
Save 5 cents per gallon after that. They have all the great things. I mean, right? They are always doing fuel fill-ups where, right, you're saving 40 cents per gallon. Got one of those coming up around the corner, so make sure you can only find out by downloading the Inner Circle K app. Terms and conditions do apply at participating locations. Also, shout out our friends at Brandon Bills. Brandon Bills, they were everywhere within the studio, right? We have ASU hats. We have
Max, you're not wearing one.
We have U of A hats.
Maybe we should start doing a cap toss.
Yeah. Ooh, I kind of like that.
Yeah,
some hats over there.
There is a hat over there. I think that one would do really nicely on Max's head.
Oh, but of course, yes.
And those ones back there.
They are right over there. Those are U of A hats. I'm not touching those.
So is that one.
I'm not touching
They're all U of A hats.
That's closer to Rees.
Max,
anyway,
can you catch a U of A hat on your head?
I will purposely not. That way it goes out of the
Why
shot.
would you offend Branded Bills like this?
I'm offending U of A.
No, Branded Bills.
All right. You know what? Yeah, you can. Well, Brandon
That went
Bills, whether you're
poorly.
throwing them or wearing them on your head, you can score yourselves one. Go to brandonbills.com, use promo code PHNX, save 20% off your first order with that code PHNX. Again, I don't want that clip. Anyway, we love Brandon Bills. They also have our PHNX hats. Check them out. Brandon Bills, Arizona's company. They are the best. All right, we're talking.
And despite Max kind of throwing it then away, you know, he does actually believe in.
I do love Brandon Bills.
He does.
Yeah,
He
I
does.
love Brandon Bills.
He loves Branded Bills. He hates U of A.
That is fact. That is can confirm. Can confirm. We're back talking on the PHNX Rising podcast, recapping a little bit of last weekend. It was quite a roller coaster. Hold on for a second. Hold the phone. Super chat, $10 from Mr. Rob Owen. Thanks for considering my goalie question. Love your coverage. And how good was Margaritha?
He was really good.
You're darn right,
Excellent.
Rob. Thank you so much
And
for the super chat. We
amazing.
appreciate you.
That's such a theme, I think, of this season so far.
It really has
It's-
been. When he's
when
available,
you look at a lot of the players that Rising have brought in, I mean, he obviously is a mid-season acquisition last year. It feels head and shoulders above. Actually, to the point where I'm a little bit worried. And I'm a little bit worried that he's going to go to the Gold Cup and really stand out and be gone.
Yeah.
Too bad at the Gold Cup.
I'm not saying that.
That's
I'm not saying
that's what I
that.
heard from Owen.
But I do worry when you look at how the confidence that he's been playing with. I mean, you look at him just kind of, taking the mick a bit, isn't it, with the ball at his feet, dancing around. And he does.
Yeah.
He does that in quite a
does.
few of these games. He did it against Detroit. You're just watching him at times and thinking, if something's going to happen, it's going through him in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, that's my worry. He takes that into the Gold Cup. He plays like that with Curacao. They go on a little bit of a run, maybe get out of their group,
Yeah.
and that's a big shop window to move on to a higher level.
I mean, it's even something I think we were talking about going back to last season. It's like you can see the talent was there, and you saw it was evident that, hey, this guy on his day can do something. But I think it was trying to find, A, can he have the consistency, and B, is he going to be taking on players too much, losing the ball, and it's kind of a high risk, high reward? I think we've seen this season that, sure, that's going to happen from time to time, but you're just getting so much more benefit, than kind of downside when he's doing those moves, where he's taking guys on. You're just seeing different facets of the game, right? I mean, in back-to-back matches, I know we'll touch on here in a bit, but right, you have a absolute beautiful cutback, opens up space for yourself against Detroit City and find yourself in acres of space, inch perfect cross with your left foot for an assist. And then you go and you score in your next match. And, up until going into the, late 86 minute or whatever, right? You have the winner. So he has been crushing it.
And those two goals show his versatility as well, because they're on different sides of the
100%.
pitch. The goal against Detroit came as he was playing on the left and then moved inside, crossed it in, finding Colin Smith. And then the right, or the goal against Tulsa came on the right. It's that versatility that I don't think any other Rising player can even come close to offering.
I don't think so.
And then just take a quick look at the stats. He completed 11 dribbles over the last 2 games against Detroit and Tulsa. The rest of the team combined has 8. He's just leading the way in that category.
He is leading the way 100%. Also, NJ in the chat, do I have a favorite national team? It's the U.S. Is the U.S. Let's talk.
Max enjoys misery.
I do enjoy
In
misery.
both his national team and his club
Don't
team.
you worry. Don't you worry. We'll talk about that later. We got a lot to get into. But right, let's get back to last weekend's loss. Detroit City, Phoenix Rising. Yeah. Noah behind the map. We're not showcasing you, buddy. It's not you. You're a Phoenix Rising fan now. But Phoenix Rising, they're leading 2-0. Everything is seemingly going good, and we're actually thinking this is like a comprehensive victory, right? It's not perfect by any means.
Here's the thing. I'd say that this team. I'm intervening here slightly.
I know there's one off the woodwork. I get it.
Detroit looked a lot better than I think a 2-0 loss.
Yeah,
to be honest, in
That's
that game,
fair.
and that wasn't just over 5 minutes. I'm not saying Detroit deserved a win, but
Sure.
you looked at what they did a lot of the second half in particular, where it just felt like they were slicing through Rising for a lot of that game. Now
fair.
that said, a 2-0 win for Rising would have been a very good result.
And that's more my point is comprehensive at the very least in the scoreline. Listen, they're the good teams. Yes, they have some bit of luck going their way, but ultimately, if you can keep a team out of your net and you win 2-0, I don't really care how one side is. You've won by a multi-goal margin. That is comprehensive, at least in the scoreline. And then it unraveled. Guys, what happened? I mean, listen, you see one goal, then another. And even when Detroit was almost pressing back a bit, like, hey, we're content to get a point here, they steal the win out of nowhere. I mean, there's a combination of, I think it was a bit of goalkeeping, misjudging the flight on that third goal.
Yeah.
I think that there's just the defense kind of getting carved open like Swiss cheese. It was just a calamity of errors, both on a team level and on the individual. That is something where, again, you're looking at the Phoenix Rising roller coaster this season. You saw this match, man, they had the ups and they were riding high at the roller coaster. But man, that roller coaster, it wasn't going down in the fun way. It was going down like in reverse.
Yeah, it was chaotic, and it very well could have been 4-2 at the end of that. Rising lost the ball. Detroit weren't able to capitalize. It was just, it all came apart for Rising. I think a few substitutions. I don't think you can attribute it all on it, but just the way it went, taking off Hope Avievu and bringing on Darius Vermella is one that is probably going to be looked back. I know Hope is not a striker, or Hope not a defensive midfielder. He's much more attacking, but that just isn't the best substitution from my eyes. I think that one got a lot of scrutiny live too. It's just, then the rest of the team just turned off. You just saw that. I mean, the marking on the 2 goals, how Detroit were able to get into position across the ball both times. It just felt like everything turned off.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, you look at that first goal and it's just far too much space for the goal scorer. You look at the second goal and you just look at the number of Rising players. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coming in from the back there in that penalty area, with realistically one guy crashing towards goal. And you look at it and go, how on earth with that kind of a ratio of players does that get through and end up in the back of the net?
Yeah.
That you've got so many guys
They
there.
find a way.
And there's no real excuse for that.
No.
Is the fact that, and they didn't really make any excuses after that game. They brought up that there was a need for, maybe some of the maturity in there, maybe some of the mentality in there. That it was lacking a little bit. But yeah, what an overall just disappointing collapse, to be honest, to end that game.
Yeah, one second. We just got a $99.99 super chat. Vitar, thank you so much. I can't see what. No, is there anything associated with it?
No, but if you send a chat, just send one in the normal chat, not another super chat.
Let's freaking go. Oh my gosh. I'll flip a table. Let's do something. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Flip the table right now, Max. There's one right here. Flip it.
Yeah, I'll flip it. Hold on.
This is only gonna end in tears. This is an awful idea.
That being one of the new
I can't.
investors in the
Hold
ownership
on.
group, by the way.
Hold on. I can't.
Interesting.
I'm gonna be real. This is
Dr.
actually
Mita
very
Finance.
anticlimactic. I cannot flip the table. It's actually probably worth more than $100, but we appreciate. One second.
I'm not sure what's going. What
Is he
are
gonna
you
throw
doing,
a
Max?
chair? He's throwing
Is he
a
gonna
chair.
throw it? What?
He
He's
just hit
about
his
to smack
computer.
his own laptop here.
You gonna throw a
Rees,
chair?
now it's your turn. You throw the chair.
Max, that doesn't feel okay to say.
Hold on. Wait.
What does that mean?
I don't know. We're doing
It's because I'm English.
Max,
you
I
want me
can't
to
hear
throw
you
a
right
chair.
now, and this is just very weird.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
Max wants me to throw a chair because I'm English. Shame on you.
Oh, I see it now.
Oh, wait
That's a
second.
great point.
Oh, I know what we do. We gotta do the little.
What are we doing?
Hey.
I don't understand what I just watched. I wish I never saw that. I wish I could unsee that.
Max Simpson.
Let's go.
All right, we're getting back to normal.
Darn, you are absolutely, man. Thank
Max
you
Simpson.
so much for the super chat. Let's go. Burr, burr, burr. No, can I get a burr, burr, burr? Burr, burr, burr. Yeah.
I thought you were wanting us to do that, and I was not.
I mean, you're not. I know. You might. This man would never.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
He's the worst. Anyway, yes, going back to this match, it's it's tough, man. I mean, listen, we keep on seeing a lot of the same rising problems that we have plagued them throughout the season, right? Again, individual and team errors. I think it's a lot of disorganization. And listen, guys, I don't know if that's that's probably a mix of
I was quite confused, Andrew.
Is that a bit of
Weren't
this
we
team
all?
maybe being I don't know, a bit reactive to the ball rather than proactive? There's a lot of things going on, especially guys coming in and out of the team. You're just looking for some stability. And even though this team bent a bit through this match, they did not break up until the goals started coming in. And it's what we've seen all season.
Yeah. It's kind of that point where I think we've all said, like, well, they play a complete 90 minutes, this team, and it never seems to quite come about. And part of that is, I think, there are elements of, all those injuries they suffered earlier in the season. And even now, that still kind of comes to bite you a little bit because the guys who are coming back, you maybe don't want to let them go 90 minutes. Or if you do, maybe you're not going to do it in a 3-game week. You're going to have to make decisions towards the end of a game or other kind of factors that play into this, right? I mean, we're at a point where Braxton Montgomery's still starting, and that is no slight on him, who he has absolutely deserved, I think, to continue playing based on the performances that he has been putting in.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what you plan to do at the start of the season, is it?
Yeah.
When you kind of pull all that together, then it's been a bit of a struggle. I mean, look, this is maybe not the most. Reese's dad throws cheers, not Rees. Yeah, that's true.
I thought
It's maybe not
That was
the
genetic.
most positive message to give out right now. But we do have to be truthful on this, which is that in USL Championship history, this is the worst start 6 games in, points-wise, of any team from Arizona. So that's including Phoenix Rising, Arizona United, and even Phoenix FC, the Wolves.
Wow.
This is the worst, the slowest start that a team has had. And I'm not saying worst, by the way, by even the performances and how they look to the eye and whether there's potential there. I think there's probably more potential there than we've seen in some of these teams over the years. But just a sheer points-wise, right, when you look at the first 6 games, there's 5 points. That's the worst that we've seen.
I mean,
Ever.
I mean, listen, you're talking. They have given up the most goals, not just in the West, but in all
the
of,
league, yeah.
in all
In
of
the
USL
league,
Championship,
yeah.
right? Even people say, oh, they played one more game than other teams. Doesn't matter. All the other
They
teams
defend like they're going to score 4 goals every game.
All the
and
other teams that are on double digits have played 6.
Not
goals,
yet, at least,
or played 6 matches too, right? Like it's. This is a club where this is not sustainable, right? Like for all the attacking prowess that they have, for all of the exciting moments, and like, listen, I think this team's like entertaining for sure. I think that they can at least give you're going to pay to go watch Phoenix Rising. You're going to tune in to Phoenix Rising for 90 minutes. Oh, you'll get a show. It's going to be entertaining. You just might either have your heart ripped out or it's going to be ugly at the end. And until they're able to shore that up, that's what you're going to continue to see. I mean, we've even seen this not just in the USL Championship, but really throughout the entire history of football, right? Of this beautiful game. If you are so wayward in conceding all of those goals, it does not matter how much attacking output you have, you will not contend, and you won't even climb up to a mid-table club at that aspect. It's just being very realistic of how teams contend and they build through limiting chances and sneaking in a good goal on a consistent basis, maybe the lucky one every now and then. Not this formula where you can score and have all this attacking up, and that's amazing. But if you're leaking goals like that, it's just not sustainable.
This sounds like a rant about Big Ange. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
but-
it is. How did you know?
Poor old Max Simpson
100%.
has watched too much
100%.
Tottenham Hotspur, and right now it is.
It's the
He sees
spot-
it in
it's the-
everything.
yeah, it's the
Yeah.
Pa-Maduo Kah, Peter Parker
you know
Nemos
what?
glasses.
You know what? I'll kind of
Glasses.
hop in on this and say that the thing is, if the attack really does come together for a full 90 minutes, I think they could be a team that go out there and score like 3-4 goals.
100%.
I agree.
100%.
And I know they'll leak some goals, but again, you'll get to a point whereby I mentioned it with Braxton Montgomery, right? He deserves to still be involved, but it wasn't like this was the plan. So there could well be better opportunities there.
Yeah.
I just the thing that kind of, and I mean, like we also know as well. I think the other parts of this is that Pa-Maduo Kah isn't necessarily going out there to keep clean sheets.
Sure.
I mean, I remember when I asked him
100%.
after that Detroit game about what's the level of concern that you haven't kept a clean sheet yet, and he just said none, and then stared at me for 7 seconds. Right? I mean,
Was it
like,
only that long?
It was. I went back and counted it. It
It
was
felt
7
like
seconds.
A
Nice.
minute.
He was just staring at me.
Well,
I
and-
was
and-
right behind you.
Right
and,
at me.
and to Rob's point in this chat, this team is
Yeah.
so much more fun to
No.
watch. Last year was such reductive agony.
It feels like they're in
That's a
every
great
game
way to
as well.
describe
That's
it.
the other thing.
new wine brand.
They're
Yes.
in every game. Even when they're losing, they feel like, you know what, maybe they got a goal in them. Maybe they got a
Yeah.
second goal in them. You know, when they were up by 1, maybe they got another goal in them. Maybe they're going to find a few more.
The
I mean,
shows are entertaining.
they're always in that kind of a, you know, maybe they don't actually finally connect at the very end of it, but it's mostly starting to come together, at least in the attack. Last game's a bit of a weird exception, but that was a cup game and there was a lot of weird stuff going on.
Sure.
there,
Do
so
we agree? So Patrick Rakovsky, right, when talking and referencing, I got the graphic now.
Good job, Max.
I did it.
Way to go,
He read what the
when
quote was
talking
about. Well done.
about the loss to Detroit. It's not like we played bad. Last game, there were 5 minutes where we weren't there. But other than that, we played really well.
I don't know if I entirely agree, but I do see where he's coming
I think the
from.
majority.
I agree. Yeah.
I do get where he's
think
coming
that they
from.
didn't play
I don't think they played
poorly
poorly,
for the
yep.
85,
100%.
even if I wouldn't go so far as to say they played really well.
Yep.
I don't know if I'd even use well. I think I'd say fine. That's how I
They
describe
had
it.
moments where they played well.
Yeah, but Detroit, for me, Detroit was always knocking on the door.
That's
I mean,
true.
How many times did we
Off the
see
wood- off-
Rising's midfield just not be there at all?
They
And
weren't,
all of a
yeah.
sudden, Detroit's right in
Every
the final
game.
third.
Name-
Every
name-
game.
name
but
the
this
game.
game was
Name the game.
Right, and I
Yeah.
think that
on
is
that
a
level.
longer term problem that this club's going to have to actually address, right? You look at the midfield. I don't think any of us looked at the midfield trio that they're starting out. And let's be real, this is realistically the planned starting midfield
Mhm.
trio that we are looking at here. And so the guy who was going to be the best impressor out of this group was going to be Hope Aveyevu. I don't think that any of us really looked at it and thought that was what was going to be the case. Not because we didn't think Hope was going to be any good, but because you look at some of the other players there, you looked at Noble, you looked at Carl, and you thought maybe they've just got that bit of extra quality that's going to be what kind of, you know, lifts them above in that case. And we haven't really seen that on a consistent basis from either of those two players. I mean, obviously you have Carl was one of the probably one of the worst moments, I think, of the season so far, with just a really, really bad bit of decision making. I mean, we can talk about Rémi Cabral being a bad decision maker last night going in for the challenge he did with the yellow, right? But there's no need to make contact with the guy's head on the ground. And as far as I'm aware, from what I have heard, he did in fact do it. So for all of those slow motion replays that people have been looking at, my understanding is,
but he didn't touch him.
He did actually do it.
Yeah.
So that's. It was one of those where you're just like, in that moment, you've got to be smarter than that. And between the two of them, you expect them to, I think, add a bit more bite in that midfield, and we haven't quite seen that. Sometimes teams are able to pass through it far too easily, and it's just very, very odd, I'd say, that they if your defense is going to be what it is, and a little bit shaky, a little bit at risk because you've got those wing backs who are so aggressive because they push up the field. Colin Smith, always a guy who's going to get caught up field. Harvey Neville, when he plays, always a guy who's going to get caught up field. Emi Quayshaw, someone who actually I think can be a bit more reserved, which is interesting given he historically would have been the more attack-minded player probably of that group. It's a team that can leave themselves a little bit exposed to the back. You'd have hoped that the midfield would be that bit more solid. That they'd be forcing. Very funny, Rees.
Wait, no, I missed it.
I know.
Max, you would have hoped the midfield.
Hey!
Sorry, it's awful.
The two of you are both terrible people. Please don't. You know what? I might go back on. I'm
He's
going.
back.
I'm gone.
Oh, going back on
Got my
vacation.
passport.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
I might have to if
We're
this is
used
what
to
I'm putting up
this.
with it. But you kind of, when you pull all that together, you think, well, maybe they're going to have a bit more bite in the midfield. And we just haven't seen that from them yet. And it's not to say that it can't come or won't come, but I don't think we've seen it yet. And that actually raises the interesting part here, because I see the question about, is Skeers an attacking midfielder? I'd say he's more defensive midfielder than attacking midfielder. But after the midweek game, does JP Skeers have a shout now? Again, a lot of minutes under the legs, so maybe not. But does he have a shout maybe of being someone who should perhaps be more involved in the midfield?
I liked what he brought on on Wednesday, but again, he played the full 120, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe he did.
So, yeah, I can't imagine he would play on Saturday or meaningful minutes on Saturday, but you never know. I do think it was something different compared to what Carl and O'Kella brought. Even though it is similar, it just had that extra bit of something to it, that extra bit that those two lacked. It felt like Skeers was covering ground, and you tweeted out too that was one of his best games in a Rising shirt. I feel like a lot of times last season, especially when we saw JP Skeers play, I don't know if flew under the radar is what it was, but you kind of just didn't notice his impact. This year, I feel like, especially in this game, it was much more profound what he did on the pitch.
Well, depending on the position, I'm not going to say that's a good thing, but I don't know if that's necessarily always a bad thing, right? A quote unquote, people say, an anonymous performance. But I think sometimes if you're doing your job and slotting in well, okay, you maybe don't get the headlines. I think at times he was also even sometimes a victim of your playing in multiple positions. You're able to be that versatile. I want to see a talent like him. I want to see him either, if not lock down something, at least on a more consistent basis. I just want to see what kind of profile is he going to be, because we've seen him, right? We've seen him trying to be more of like the arrow threat. We've seen him try to play on the back line. We've seen him pushing further the pitch. What is he going to look like, and how is it going to translate to whether you're seeing him starting, whether you're seeing him coming off the bench? What are you going to get with him out of the performance? Because we know it's there. We just don't always know what it manifests as.
It's true.
Gents, anything else on this match? I mean, this really did have absolutely everything.
You just don't kind of want to think about it anymore, do you, really, to try that game? That was, yeah.
Okay.
Jearl looked good.
Jearl.
That's every game, though.
You're darn right. Well,
we got the vice president of the Jearl Margaritha fan club.
The Jearl Margaritha, Mr. Aura himself.
Yeah.
Who's the president there?
Kevin Cardaz.
There we go.
That's right. Well, let's take a look to this Saturday's matchup. Phoenix Rising are hosting Sacramento Republic FC. Right? These guys always play. It's always something going on. And, most of the time, I feel one of these two teams are either at the top or contending. They're both pretty bad. Darn near the bottom of the West right now.
One of the few times this year that, or at least in this going, that Rising could play someone below them.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, Sac Republic, they're on a -1 goal differential. I mean, listen, Rising, they're leaking goals, but at least they're also scoring them, right? They're tied for the highest number of goals scored in the West. Sac Republic, they're second to last.
To be clear, by the way, here Sacramento are above Rising in the minute.
So second to last in terms of goals scored, just to clarify.
Correct.
But yes,
What's
because
the
they do have the
Houston
edge.
I'm going for Rees here, sorry, because Rees said that they below. No, they're in 10th. Rising are 11th.
Because he's looking at. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
I was looking at Max's screen.
I'm referencing that.
You gotta look at the league one because the
I forgot,
tiebreakers. You forget USL just kind of like the tiebreakers are based on if the wind's blowing in this direction.
Yeah,
nice.
And the temperature is this.
And
also,
Max hasn't embarrassed himself on the pod today.
And I haven't.
Definitely not.
No.
And
And if the
Ange is
snack
still the
toss was
manager of
completed.
Tottenham
well,
Hotspur.
to be clear, they were getting to that later.
And
Also,
Omar
there was
Reza
no-
says something stupid in a press conference. He did. What a time to support Cardiff. But you know, then they come out with someone who's on top, and right now it's Sacramento. Same points.
What do we think?
Interesting start to the Collins era there.
Yeah, they've played a lot of good teams, to be fair to them. They played New Mexico, they played Switchbacks, they played Tulsa, Louisville, Orange County as their 5 league games.
Bit of a trial by fire.
I was gonna say, it's
man.
honestly disgusting. Yeah.
Their one win did come against New Mexico on the opener.
Gross.
Since then, they haven't won a game. They did win that against a 10-man New Mexico side. That's when Sac scored both their goals. So it's interesting because they still have the attacking talent of Russell Cicerone, who is has been one of the better players in this league at his time. And it just feels like they haven't quite found it yet. Cicerone's got a couple of goals, but they're just not there yet where they want to be in the Neil Collins era.
I mean, Cicerone's the main guy if you're looking at who you've got to stop to come out of this with a result, right? Because you look at him, he leads that team in goals. I know it's elite, 2 goals at the moment to his name. 13 chances created, which leads the team over there as well. And again, we just know what he's been able to do over the years. He's an established, proven USL Championship player, and he is going to be one of those guys who, if you can put a stop to him in a game like this, you're forcing Sacramento to find other options in there. It'd be interesting to see. I mean, here's the other interesting one. You want for a Sacramento player? One, I don't believe we saw him last year because I think he was injured prior to facing Sacramento. Roro Lopez is back.
Wow.
How does he keep coming back? I
don't understand.
I have a lot of respect
100%
for Roro Lopez and the fact that the guy keeps playing games, but he's in his late 30s at this point.
Didn't he tear his ACL before that too?
He's injured himself several times over his career.
Dear gosh.
And keeps coming back. And when he's on his game, he's really good. Do you remember when 2022 was it? No, 2021 playoffs? RGV loss.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And they were kind of saying Roro's washed almost on the commentary, weren't they?
Yeah.
When he was playing for RGV. This guy's still playing. He also scored in that game as well, by the way. Scored a free kick. Really good free kick. And I know he had some comments to say about the
that was an extra time,
insinuation that he may be washed. It might have been after Solo retook the lead for Phoenix Rising. You were in the North End.
I went to the North End for the second half of extra time in that.
North Ender.
He's a big North End guy.
Well, your family members were there too.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah.
I remember this. I do actually remember this. People trying to get an atmosphere going up the North End.
Didn't work.
Didn't really work.
It's the North End.
It's the North End. You're not wrong. But it's intriguing to me that he keeps kind of coming back.
Yeah. And he's kind of mixed with the total youth, the total opposite of his age, and Blake Wiley in midfield, who's 17, and he has been a starter for Sacramento all season long, bar the Tulsa game. But he has been a big piece. It's interesting to see kind of who will emerge because as that main piece of Sacramento, because last year they had Kieran Phillips on loan from Huddersfield, and he was just lighting the league on fire. and they don't really have anyone like that. There's a couple guys. Trevor Ammon is back, but he hasn't played yet this season, so who really knows yet?
Yeah.
What's interesting to me, and I'm gonna take this from my good friend John Morrissey at Backfield, is that despite the fact that they're not doing very well at the moment in the standings, he currently has Sacramento Republic at 9 in his power rankings.
I think he has. Does he have Miami still fairly high?
Oh gosh.
Miami
Or they
are
bottom, or-
16,
Yeah,
which out of 24 is not that high.
technically.
I mean, that's like
technically.
it's high for Miami.
They're a better team this year.
I
They
know,
are.
but
They are. Even though the
I
results haven't quite come.
don't buy
yet.
it. We're still early.
Nah, look at them play.
We're still early. Let's see real quick. Andrew in the chat. Just trying to tinker with the lineup, right? Not taking as many headers. Can this team somehow try to fit in maybe Quajo, Formella, Margarita in there? I mean, I personally like their front line. I like their front line.
Yeah,
How they're
I
playing.
want
To me,
tinker
don't
with
change a
it.
thing. Like
I also don't think, by the way, that you'd move Emi Quayo away from the position that he's
I would
currently
agree.
playing in.
I would agree.
Because as I'm thinking about who slots in there, I don't necessarily want a scenario where you're playing both Colin. I mean, I'm making a presumption here, but say if you were to play both Colin Smith and Harvey Neville at the same time, I don't necessarily like those two at the same
I don't
time. They're
disagree.
both very aggressive fullbacks that don't really offer a whole lot always defensively.
Which is they
They're
are playing
much
defense.
more about finding their position in the attack. And the problem is Rising's midfield struggles, I think, in the, to actually kind of close things down in the midfield. I don't really want to see both of those out there. I'd rather see Emi Quayo still playing at the back. Formella at left wing. I mean, I can see Formella playing a role in this game because he wasn't able to get minutes in midweek because he was still suspended from a 2023 red card in the US Open Cup. As was
Love
Harvey
Open
Neville, by
Cup
the way.
suspensions.
Open Cup suspensions never go away. They do actually after 10 years or 20 if it went to the disciplinary panel. But
That's true.
it's true.
I know.
Do you
It's-
know?
I know. It's just
you
insane.
serve
It's
it
just
or it
insane.
takes
Is
like
Clint
10 or
Dempsey
20
still
years.
suspended?
No, he did serve all 6
Oh, he
games of
did?
his
Okay.
suspension. So I could see Formella having a role there. I could see Harvey Neville having a role there. Margarita on the right, very possible, very much doable. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued.
The only
overall.
rotation that I think I'd want to see in the front line is working ways to get. I know this one on Sacramento is a bit of an exception, but finding a way to get Damon Rivera more involved
That's fair.
in a normal match
I
week.
I don't disagree. Score predictions, Jens.
I have no idea. I don't know what direction
Do you
I
want me to
go in
kick
this.
off?
Please.
Yes,
I'm gonna go 1-1.
Feels
1-1.
fair.
I'm gonna take a Jearl Margaritha goal.
That's an easy pick. I'm
It is an easy
afraid.
pick.
I'm getting no respect for this one. That's okay.
I want to go 1-1-2, but I'll be different.
1-1-2. There's only 2 teams playing.
Well,
Rees.
I remember when last
See, even Max is actually
when
impressed
LA
by that
Galaxy
one.
2 would play, so they'd always say the scoreline: Phoenix Rising insert a lot of goals here. LA Galaxy 2 and 1 or something like that. Anyways, I'm gonna go.
It was when you had like
2-1.
2 of the 2 teams playing each other.
I
which
know,
is very
I know
weird.
what
You'd
you're
have,
saying.
like,
I just
17
remember.
numbers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 2-1 Rising just because I think the Open Cup gives them a little bit of momentum. I know Sacramento won in their Open Cup, but they beat El Farolito, and that's not the same as beating FC Tulsa by any means. I think Rising, that's a big win for them on Wednesday. They kind of have a bit of momentum. Depends who plays on who scores. Because Damien Rivera hasn't been used too much lately, I'm going to back him for at least 1 goal. And my second goal, I am going to go Noble Okello. I don't know why. I'm just trying to
Noble
pick the most
Okello,
random
okay.
player I could think of.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, all these games have been chaotic, so this one will be no different. But the scoreline will be 1-0. Phoenix Rising will top the battle of the almost bottom feeders. And I got Dan Rivera scoring. Chat, let us know as well. Noah.
Can I interrupt
got?
here before we toss over to Noah a
Yeah.
second? Sacramento got 9 yellow cards, by the way, on Wednesday. So last
Jeez.
night against El
impressive.
Farolito.
That is impressive.
9 yellow cards.
Impressive. Noah, who you got?
I'm gonna go Rising 3-0.
Wow.
Wow.
Defiant. Noah, new producer behind the Mac. Not new to PHNX, but new to us.
You're new
Wow.
to this one, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you are. Okay. Overall,
Last week we were
relatively
very
positive.
I
positive.
tell you
weren't we?
what, the thing
There
is,
was no negative on the score prediction so far. Chat, let us know as well.
I
please.
take a draw against Sacramento.
Take a draw. Yeah.
I think you think about the caliber, and especially at the end of a very long week, you kind of take a draw. I mean, if you'd have beaten Detroit, you'd definitely say you take a point in this game.
Sure. Right. Well, we will have to see. Chat, keep on sending in those score predictions. We'll read them as you send them over. Gents, little quick roundup on the Europe competitions.
Miserable.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Absolutely amazing.
It's gorgeous, isn't it?
Best moment of my life.
Oh man. All right. I will. You go up. I remember
Max is a big Emmerdale
I
fan.
remember.
Absolutely.
I remember even harkening back to last week where we said on the pod that Rees is up 3-0 on aggregate to Real Madrid, and you said I've never been more terrified.
I absolutely was.
And
I
you
was
guys,
shaking watching the game. I was terrified.
You slayed the Giants, sir.
It was amazing. When Bukayo Saka missed the penalty, I got flashbacks to 2021. I was absolutely terrified from then. But Real Madrid looked terrible. They didn't create any chances.
no.
The one chance they had came out when Arsenal made a mistake, and that's just kind of Arsenal's way.
They have won every game, yeah, for sure.
Make one mistake, that's how they concede.
Yeah,
And now through to PSG.
that's gonna be pretty juicy.
That's gonna be a fun couple of
That
legs.
honestly, those are two teams have been rebuilt over the years. Young core, that's gonna be exciting.
Two very good midfields.
Yes.
Or at least for Arsenal.
Yeah.
One
Well,
midfielder.
Well, listen, there's some craziness in Champions League. Like, okay, like all relatively straightforward for some of them. I mean, you want to talk about Europa League? Even today, my goodness, Man United, Leon. Did you see that? Catch that?
So I was
That
taking
is
a
an
nap.
I actually know
Manchester
someone
United-
who was there,
Whoa,
and
man.
he was
Manchester
he
United
was having a great
has
time.
to be the most topsy-turvy, dismal club I have seen in recent memory. Andre Onana, my word, you.
Yeah,
He's a guy.
My friends
guy.
woke me up from my nap when they scored. I think they're second in extra time to make it 4-4. I just woke up to a lot of screaming and was very concerned.
You're drawing 2-2 on aggregate going into the match. You go in at halftime. You're up 2-0. You're riding high. You're fine. Concede 2, and then you're still up a man. Concede 2 more in extra time, and you're thinking you literally are going to blow this down 2 goals and up a man somehow, and then they score 3 unanswered. Just scenes. I hate to see it, but scenes.
Slabhead with the winner.
Slabhead with the winner. Speaking of winners, Spurs. Was it ever in doubt?
Of
Tottenham
course it
Hotspur.
was.
Let's go.
From the second.
Oh, again, just as a
started.
funeral. I was expecting, like, listen, the misery. It's just there. It's just there. But hey, they pull one out. We win. Eintracht Frankfurt. Ooh, we're so scared.
Well, it's okay.
Nah,
You got to make the Europa League final so that Ange stays.
because he always wins things.
Always
No,
wins things the
wait,
second
no. I think
Yeah, Europa League finalist. You've said that's a title before, haven't you?
no,
Matt?
take it back.
You said that was a title
That's a
before.
little different.
That counts, doesn't it? Now you're
Oh,
stuck with
man.
How's
Ange.
Wrexham doing, Max?
Nice, yeah. Wrexham.
Yeah,
And in relation, how's
yeah.
Cardiff doing? Wasn't it?
Oh no, we're
Cardiff supposed to
terrible.
look
Cardiff's
down?
awful. Actually, no. I'd like to say shout out to Cardiff women winning the league.
Boom. There we go. Anthony in
Huge.
chat. Late because I'm in
Huge.
North Carolina. My time is all messed up. Once again, asking you to consider Jearl Margaritha for Goat Watch. He's not
absolutely.
on watch. He is
Goat.
the GOAT. He is GOAT. Make sure, of course, by the way, if you haven't already, join our $36 diehard NFL draft sale. You got ad-free access to all of our expert analysis for the other kind of football. Owen doesn't like that other football kind of as much.
This is better
But
football,
you
isn't it?
may like the football. Follow our PHNX Cardinals team and everything that they have going on. Get the ultimate diehard draft guide, over 150 player profiles, combine notes, and insider reporting. Plus, of course, you get a free PHNX t-shirt. Literally, the value of the t-shirt pays for itself upon buying. Plus, you get 20% off all PHNX events and merch, access to the diehard only Discord lounge and all the fun stuff we have going on. We turn in the chat. Thank you again so much for your super chat earlier, and appreciate the nice notes about the podcast. It is, you say it's impressive. It's certainly something, and I appreciate it. But I think that'll do it for us here on the PHNX Rising podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at PHNX__rising, double the underscore.
I'll let Rees take it away.
I have no idea. Double the relegations card if we're going to suffer in the next 2 years.
let's
Oh,
go.
that's miserable. Don't put that out
You can
there.
follow me on Twitter.
But
at
it might
David
happen. I
Simpson.
won't
You can
rule it out.
follow the Mr. Vacations, OJ Evans 18. He is back.
I actually watched some League One football while I was back, so I'm
crazy,
ready.
man.
I got myself
You're
ready.
crazy, man. You are
I'm
scouting.
I was at Exeter against Stockport. Stockport might even get promoted
Absolutely
this year, so we can't roll that
You can
out.
follow Mr. Vacations on Twitter, who's back in the fold at OJ Evans 18. You can follow Statlacky Rees on Twitter, Rees11_. No, what's your Twitter? I don't know. Tell
Bing,
people.
bing, boom, bang.
I don't even know how to react to that.
You can follow Noah on Twitter at Bing Bing Boom Bum. Please, I hope someone creates that if that's not a thing. But yeah, follow Noah there.
Don't. Let's not plug unknown
you're
Twitter
right.
accounts
No
because we
offense.
don't know what we're
This
directing
is
people
true.
to at this point.
We keep up with us in the Discord on Twitter, PH__rising for this weekend's updates, and you will join us next week, Wednesday, 6 p.m. back to our normal time. It is a beautiful game, but it's way more beautiful when any of the clubs we support, whether it's Phoenix Rising, whether it's Cardiff, whether it's Spurs, whether it's Arsenal, has just a moment to breathe and not a crazy game where something goes nuts. But we all know that's not going to happen.
No.
Good night.
We all silly like the mayor.